Paul, you've covered Alabama and college football for more than 40 years now. Have you ever seen anything quite like Nick Saban's coaching tree?
John, the easy answer is no, because I don't think anyone has ever seen anything quite like this, no matter how far you go back in history. You think about it, he's been at Alabama now for 15 years. He's won 6 national championships. He's lost a couple of other times. I mean, he's been in it every year. There was a stat that came out the other day with Alabama being #1 in the country that every single year since 2008, at some point, Nick Saban's team has been ranked #1. That is unprecedented.
So many of his former assistants, Paul, revere him. But then you also have Jimbo Fisher, who worked for Saban at LSU, who this offseason referred to Saban as a narcissist who thinks he's God. That, of course, was the whole NIL flap. What's it like to work for Nick Saban?
Extremely difficult. I mean, think about your worst boss. Don't say it on the air because he may be behind the camera right now in the production room. But the point, John, all seriousness, is he's very demanding. It doesn't matter whether he was the 50-year-old Nick Saban or about to be the 71-year-old. He expects a lot, and that doesn't rub some people the right way. And Jimbo Fisher, I think, was one of those who was recalcitrant. He liked to push back, and I think that's one reason why these guys will never be vacationing together.
Paul, I watched an interview you did back in 2018 where you talked about covering the end of Paul Bryant's career, and you mentioned how at 69 Bryant started to lose on the recruiting trail and looked vulnerable. How is it that Nick Saban, by comparison, has managed to avoid the pitfalls that come with age?
I think some of it is how Nick Saban looks versus Bear Bryant. Bear Bryant was an old man, and which is understandable when you turn 69. But he looked old. He looked decrepit. I mean, there were lines in his face that were deeper than the crevices and the craters of the moon. Saban still looks pretty good at 70. He's not as sharp walking and in every other category that maybe he was 10 or 15 years ago. But I think on the practice field, he still resonates great respect. He still beats everybody else, and that's really where you get the cred in college football or any sport.
We mentioned the contract extension that Saban recently signed a few years ago. You said you thought the end might come sooner than people think for Nick Saban. Well, based on recent available evidence, do you still feel that way?
Yeah, no, every time I say that, he signs another contract a couple of years later. You will, and I think I have gone broke predicting Nick Saban's demise. I just did not think that he would be able to sustain it. And again, this newest contract, John, takes him until he's 79. I'm still going to take the under on that. I think at some point it does happen, and yeah, maybe it's just your health. I mean, everyone can't stay healthy, but I think for the time being he's in good shape because he has the #1 team in the country. He's having one of the best recruiting classes he's ever had, and the transfer portal, as much as he'd like to rail against that in NIL, has been good to him. He's got the best 2 players in college football as this season begins.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.